What's up, what's up? If you've been sleeping on your Switch lately, this one's for you. We're going through 20 games that don't get nearly enough attention. Some you've probably heard of, some you definitely haven't, but all of them are worth your time. Elementallis dropped in April 2026 and barely made a ripple, which is honestly criminal. This is a top-down action-adventure straight out of the SNES Zelda playbook. Think A Link to the Past vibes, but with its own thing going on. The story follows you as the child of two elementalists who went rogue and basically broke the world. Your parents imprisoned the elements, ether is consuming everything, and now it's your mess to clean up. You travel across 8 different biomes, each tied to a temple holding a captured element, and you've got to restore balance before it all collapses. Combat mixes sword and shield fundamentals with elemental magic. Fire burns, earth drains health, electricity chains enemies. You're constantly swapping elements based on weaknesses, solving puzzles with the same powers you fight with, and unlocking new areas as your toolkit grows. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Ubisoft actually made something great here. You play as Sargon, one of the Immortals, an elite group of warriors sent to rescue the kidnapped Prince Darius in a cursed mountain called Mount Kaf. Time is literally broken in this place, and the story leans into that hard with some genuinely well-written characters and a plot that earns its twists. Mechanically, it's a Metroidvania through and through, but the movement feels incredible. You've got a dash, a parry system that rewards timing, and time-bending abilities that start stacking in wild ways, like pinning a shadow of yourself in midair to use as a platform, or slowing time to pass through obstacles. The map marker system lets you screenshot areas you can't reach yet, so you remember to come back, which sounds small, but is actually a quality-of-life feature every Metroidvania should steal. Combat is fast and snappy.
Control over time, at the heart of the Prince of Persia franchise, is back in a new way. Over the course of his adventure,
Transistor. You play as Red, a singer in a futuristic city called Cloudbank who loses her voice and ends up holding a giant sword called the Transistor, which contains the consciousness of someone important to her. The city is being consumed by a force called the Process, and Red is caught in the middle of a political takedown she didn't ask for. The story is told mostly through atmospheric details and the Transistor talking to you, so it rewards paying attention. Combat is the highlight. You can pause time and plan out a sequence of actions, then watch it execute in real time. Every skill is called a function, and you can slot them into different roles: active abilities, modifiers, and passive boosts. The combinations get genuinely creative. Losing a function temporarily when you die means the game is constantly reshuffling your options.
End of the plaza.
Tunic is the kind of game you need to go into as blind as possible. You play as a small fox in a mysterious world full of ruins, enemies, and secrets. The game gives you almost nothing. No handholding, no UI explanation, barely any text you can read. Instead, you find pages of an in-game instruction manual scattered across the world, written in an untranslatable language, with diagrams you have to interpret yourself. That's the game. Figuring out how it works is the point. Combat is Souls adjacent. You dodge, block, manage stamina, and die a lot if you're reckless. But the real meat is exploration and discovery. The world is dense, with secrets hidden in plain sight, and there's a late-game layer that recontextualizes everything in a way that genuinely impressed me. The developer spent years on this solo, and you can feel that level of care in every corner. Enter the Gungeon. The premise is absurd, in the best way. You descend into a dungeon that is also a gun to find the mythical weapon that can kill the past. Every character you pick has their own backstory and their own regret they're trying to undo. The gameplay is twin-stick bullet hell meets dungeon crawler, and the first few hours will destroy you. But once the movement clicks, the dodge roll is invincible. During specific frames, it all opens up. There are hundreds of guns, and the naming conventions alone are worth the price of admission. Synergies between items are hidden but transformative, and figuring them out through experimentation is its own kind of fun. Each of the 4 characters plays differently, and the bosses are creative and fair once you learn their patterns. It's a game that respects your time by not wasting it. Every run teaches you something, even the bad ones. Guacamelee 2 genuinely improves on the original in almost every way. You're back as Juan, the luchador, 7 years after the events of the first game settled down, a little soft, until a new threat to the Mexiverse pulls him back in. The multiverse mechanic opens up multiple versions of familiar areas that are visually distinct and mechanically interesting. Combat is a brawler Metroidvania hybrid, where you chain wrestling moves, special abilities, and platforming into a fluid system that feels great once it clicks. The new moves, like the Rooster Uppercut and Olmeca Ball, add vertical complexity to both combat and level traversal. The humor stays consistently sharp. There's no shortage of memes and pop culture gags that don't overstay their welcome. The challenge is real too, with some late-game platforming sections that require tight execution. This sequel to Grapple Dog flew completely under the radar when it dropped in late 2024, and it's genuinely one of the best pure platformers the Switch has seen. You play as both Pablo and Luna, 2 dogs with grappling hooks, after a new threat called Veer starts chasing down pieces of the All Crystal across the cosmos. Pablo and Luna are great together. Pablo is the optimistic, close-range brawler. Luna is the grumpy, gun-toting antihero who challenges everything he says. Each has their own levels built around their specific movesets, plus elemental powers that get introduced world by world, keeping the level design constantly fresh. The grapple mechanic is the core of everything, swinging, chaining off enemies, wall bouncing, and it never stops feeling satisfying. The story has more emotional depth than you'd expect from a game with cartoon dogs, and the soundtrack goes harder than it has any right to. Pipistrello and the Cursed Yoyo. You play as Pipit, a young bat from a wealthy industrial family who discovers a criminal gang is trying to use a soul-stealing device on his aunt. The story has a fun, comic book energy with a cast of quirky villains and a sense of humor that lands consistently. The yo-yo is the whole show mechanically. It's your primary weapon, but also your traversal tool. You bounce it off angled walls to hit enemies from across rooms, use it to activate switches, swing off environmental anchors, and chain attacks into crowd-clearing combos. The upgrade system ties into an in-game debt contract. You take on a loan for a permanent upgrade, but while you're paying it off, your stats take a penalty. It's the most interesting upgrade economy I've seen in a Zelda-like in a while. Boss fights escalate well, using the pinball angles of combat arenas against you in smart ways. Criminally overlooked. CrossCode is a masterpiece of game design that somehow slipped past most people. It's set inside a fictional MMORPG called Crossworlds, where you play as Leah, a player character who can't speak and has no memories. The mystery of who Leah is and why she's in this game drives a story that evolves from light adventure into something more complex and emotionally resonant. The dual-genre concept action RPG inside a simulated MMO lets the developers play with conventions in creative ways. Combat is fast and reactive, built around a ball you shoot and charge up in multiple elements, combined with melee attacks and dodge timing. The puzzle design is exceptional. Dungeon puzzles involve physics and elemental interactions that are some of the most satisfying in any action RPG. The overworld is huge, the side quests are better written than most main stories, and the pacing is confident throughout. Ender Magnolia is the follow-up to Ender Lilies, and in a lot of ways, it's a stronger game. Set in a world where the Land of Luster is being poisoned by miasma that transforms humans into monstrous homunculi, you play as Lilac, a young girl with the ability to purify and heal corrupted beings. The tone is melancholic, but not without warmth. Where Ender Lilies felt raw and punishing, Magnolia finds a better balance. The difficulty is still present, but the movement and combat feel more polished. You collect homunculi as companions who fight alongside you, and each has distinct attack patterns and can be upgraded. The build variety is substantial, and mixing companion abilities creates satisfying synergies. The world design is interconnected in the way good Metroidvanias always are, with new abilities opening paths through areas you've already explored. Quartet, 4 protagonists across parallel worlds. Alexandra, a shop girl who discovers she can use magic through a card deck. Ben and 2 others. Each get a 2-hour introductory chapter you can tackle in any order. Events in one world ripple into the others, and the second half of the game brings them all together in a narrative that earns its scale. Turn-based combat is streamlined and smart. Attack order is displayed so you can plan ahead. Elemental damage matters, and MPT regenerates per turn, so resource management is tense but never unfair. You can see each character represents one of the 4 classic elements, and building around elemental matchups shapes your strategy throughout. The pixel art captures 16-bit style with modern polish, and late in the game, you unlock an airship with a Mode 7 style world map that feels like a genuine tribute to those SNES classics. Rogue Legacy 2. The sequel is better in every way. You're raiding a castle that shifts on each run, but the hook is that when you die, you play as one of your heirs, each with random traits like being colorblind, having ADHD that makes you move faster, or being clumsy enough to leave items on the floor. It sounds gimmicky, but it's consistently funny and occasionally tactically interesting. Mechanically, the game expanded hard from the original, with multiple classes, each playing completely differently, and a massive skill tree that carries progress between runs. The biomes are now visually distinct environments with their own enemy types and bosses. The ecosystem lets you revisit defeated bosses under new challenge conditions. Combat is tight and skill-based. The dodge timing and attack patterns require genuine mastery to pull off cleanly. Before Ender Magnolia, there was Ender Lilies, and it's still a hauntingly beautiful game. You play as Lily, a girl with no memories who wakes up in a flooded, ruined kingdom. The Blight, a lethal rain that transforms humans into violent undead, has consumed everything. The story is told through item descriptions, environmental storytelling, and occasional cutscenes, and it builds a genuinely tragic picture of a world that already lost. You collect the spirits of fallen knights, who become your combat companions and your connection to the world's history. Each spirit brings different attacks and abilities, some for combat, some for traversal. The Metroidvania loop is well executed, with a dark, interconnected world that rewards careful exploration. The difficulty is steep and intentional. The bosses hit hard, and memorizing their patterns takes real effort. Sentinels is one of the most uniquely structured games ever made, and it's criminal how few people have played it. Vanillaware made this one, so the hand-drawn 2D art is already stunning. The story follows 13 high school students across different time periods, all connected by giant mechs called Sentinels, and a threat from kaiju attacking their city. The narrative is delivered through an adventure game format, where you explore environments, talk to characters, and piece together a mystery that spans decades of timeline in a non-linear way. Each character's chapter unlocks at different paces, and recontextualizes what you thought you knew. The RTS combat sections, where you pilot Sentinels against kaiju waves, work as a breather between story beats. This is a game where the story is the gameplay, and it's one of the most ambitious narratives in any medium you'll find on Switch.
Watch this. They felt that. Did you see that?
What's our plan?
Ninja Gaiden Ragebound was announced at the Game Awards 2024 and dropped in July 2025. Developed by the Game Kitchen, the team behind Blasphemous, and it's exactly as good as that pedigree suggests. The story takes place while Ryu Hayabusa is away in America, fulfilling his father's wishes. Back home, the barrier between the human and demon worlds shatters, and a young ninja from the Hayabusa village named Kenji Mozu has to step up. Desperate and outmatched, Kenji forms an unlikely alliance with the Black Spider Clan, historical enemies, and taps into forbidden powers to survive. You control both Kenji and the assassin Komori, switching between them and using ninja fusion to chain their abilities into devastating combo moves. The mechanics are old-school pick-up-and-play, with modern precision layered on top. It's brutal in the classic Ninja Gaiden tradition, but fair and readable. Absolum hit in October 2025 from the Guard Crush Games and Supermonks, published by .mu, the team that brought Streets of Rage 4 back to relevance. The world of Talum was shattered by a magical catastrophe caused by reckless wizards, and now magic is feared and persecuted. Sun King Azra has turned that public mistrust into authoritarian control, and you're here to end his reign. It's a beat-em-up roguelite, and the fusion works better than it has any right to. Combat is deep light and heavy combos, a dodge with a timed knockback counter, a clash that repels attacks if you strike at the right moment, throwable objects, rideable beasts, spellcasting. The runs are structured with multiple path choices and unpredictable encounters, and permanent upgrades through collected crystals keep the progression loop rewarding. Mio, Memories in Orbit, came out January 2026 from French studio Deux Dixiem, and it's one of the most visually striking Metroidvanias ever made. You play as Mio, a small robot who wakes up with no memories on a massive colony ship called the Vessel, a technological ark overgrown with wild vegetation and full of malfunctioning machines. The Pearls, the Vessel's guardian AI caretakers, have gone offline, and the ship is facing shutdown. Mio's mission is to revive them and uncover her own past in the process. The story is told mostly through environmental details and lore scrolls rather than cutscenes, which keeps the focus on exploration. Mechanically, Mio starts nearly empty-handed and slowly accumulates abilities through boss defeats, a grapple hook made from her own hair, wall climbing, gliding, decoy clones, orb projectiles. Nobody Saves the World looks like a kid's game and plays like one of the most creative action RPGs in years. You start as a blank, expressionless nobody who finds a wizard's wand and has to stop an ancient calamity from destroying the world. The hook is the class system. You unlock over 15 forms: ranger, rat, horse, ghost, dragon, bodybuilder, and mix and match their abilities freely. Completing form-specific quests unlocks passive bonuses you can slot into any build, so the game is constantly rewarding experimentation. The combat is real-time and chaotic, and building synergies between a dragon's breath and a bodybuilder's passive regen or a magician's pierce is the actual game. The writing is sharp and self-aware without being obnoxious about it. Co-op works seamlessly and is genuinely more fun with a partner. Inscryption. On the surface, it's a deck-building roguelike where you're trapped in a cabin playing cards against a mysterious figure in the dark. You build decks using creatures, sacrifice cards to summon stronger ones, and manage a resource called Bones and Blood. But Inscryption is also a puzzle game, and a narrative game, and something else entirely that you discover as you play. Saying more spoils it. What I can say is that the card mechanics are satisfying and deep enough to stand alone. The atmosphere in the opening act is legitimately unsettling, and the game earns the reputation it has. Daniel Mullins, the developer, made something that trusts players to engage with it fully and rewards that trust. It's been out a while, but the Switch version plays well, and it's still one of the most memorable games I've experienced in the last few years. Sea of Stars. Sabotage Studio spent years building a love letter to SNES-era JRPGs, specifically Chrono Trigger and Super Mario RPG, and what came out is one of the most accomplished RPGs on any platform in years. The story follows Valir and Zale, Solstice warriors trained to use the power of the sun and moon to fight the creations of an evil alchemist called the Fleshmancer. It starts as a classic hero's journey and grows into something with genuine emotional stakes and surprising depth. The turn-based combat is the centerpiece. You can hit enemies on specific parts of their attack bars to interrupt incoming moves, use combo attacks between characters, and chain elemental magic for bonus damage. No random encounters. Every fight is visible and avoidable if you choose. The world is gorgeous, rendered in one of the best pixel art styles ever committed to a game. "20 games, all of them worth your time, most of them probably not on your radar yet. Drop in the comments which ones you've already played or which one you're adding to your library next. If this helped you find something new, hit subscribe. More lists like this are coming. Catch you in the next one.